All right, everybody. Hello. What up? We're drawn. No one can tell us not to draw just because it's the holidays. Art knows no holidays, that is for sure. Hello, hello. Hello, friends. Yeah, so big surprise, big update surprise. It's drawing time. Yeah, everyone was pretty shocked to find out. Really changed the nature of the whole world. But you know, this is the future we live in. It's drawing time. You know, we just have to accept that we have to draw. Like there's no escape. I've got my references up today, doing something a little different. So you can draw along if you want. And there's deals going on Proco and my Gumroad for Black Friday, Silver Saturday, Cyber, whatever you want to call it. So you can go get my videos. You can go get the reference packs that this photo of Yanni is from there. And or you can look at the one I have on screen right now and draw along. And let us be happy and peaceful and be joyous in the art of drawing. And I got my timer up, so I'm gonna do it a little bit life drawing style today. So I'm gonna do probably 5 or 10 minutes per sketch to start out for a little bit. I'm not doing ones or 30 seconds, not today. I'm sorry, but 1 minute couldn't possibly contain everything that I have to say about a drawing. We need more time. So how was everyone's Thanksgiving? If you were in the States, did you eat turkey? Did you like it? How was your family? I hope the traditional Thanksgiving argument was gentle for all of you. The traditional oven roasted Thanksgiving argument. My family has started deep frying our arguments instead. They're more savory that way. I'm gonna up the volume of the music for you all and lower it for me. I want it barely there for me. And it's not showing up for y'all at all. Oh, there it is. How's that? How's that for music? Can you not hear it at all? Is it too low in the mix? Is it good? Yeah, my family was great. Our deep fried arguments were delicious. Played a little charades. Had a little wine. I drew a bit with my patrons on Discord on Thanksgiving morning. So I felt good. Still got the drawing in. Thank goodness I did too, because I wound up stuck in traffic for 4 hours. Actually more than 4 hours, 4.5 hours on the way to my family's house. So if I hadn't got that drawing in the morning, I really would have been like, oh god, what a waste. It was my bad. I spaced. I should have known better. I was just so distracted trying to get ready and get out the door that we made a rookie mistake for route planning in New York and suffered ridiculously for it. So ain't that how it goes? Music is non-existent. Let me fix. I will fix. It should be showing up in the mix there. Maybe I just won't listen for now. It's a bit loud for me right now. Shortcuts good for beginners, yes or no? Depends what your goals are. If you want to be a like a production artist, if you want to be a commercial artist, I don't know, concept artist, illustrator, or something like that, you should feel free to use as many shortcuts as you want. People also have different opinions about what is or isn't a shortcut, right? So it's a bit of a nuanced question, but yeah, generally for commercial artists, use shortcuts liberally if you want to be a commercial artist, because you're going to use them a lot in the job and get used to them, get used to using them with expediency and with efficiency. Because no shortcut is actually like just easy in art. In art, shortcuts need to be used on their own with wisdom, and most shortcuts are laughably ineffective and still give you ugly results, so you need to know how to balance them with your artistic taste. So they actually do still need you to practice them and to get good at them. That's right, even with shortcuts, you even need to get good at cheating. Unbelievable. If you don't want to be a commercial artist, or if you're not sure, then you want to be very cautious about shortcuts. If you're doing this because you want to be quote unquote good at drawing, right? If that's your main focus instead of a job or something like that, shortcuts will not really help you at all. Know your goals, know what you're actually trying to achieve, and base every single decision on that. Use that as your filter for everything. music skipping so much on the Lofi Girl playlist? I guess it could just be part of the song. Alright, I said I'd only do 5s or 10s, and I'm already going over. But what, I can't help it. It's fun. Let's do another one. How can I get my camera to pick up the time down there? Steven, if I were to approach a professional artist and ask for a paid mentorship for, let's say, 6 to 3 months with a weekly 1-hour meeting, how many do you think would accept, or would it be rude to ask? No, it wouldn't be rude to ask. No, not at all. As long as you're offering to pay, I don't think anybody would be offended. It just comes down to if the pay works for them, and if they have the time to do it. But yeah, as long as you're offering to pay, I don't see why anyone would think it was rude or anything like that. But I would just cast a wide net, you know. It's you probably need to offer to pay, right? Unless it's an artist you just happen to already be like really close friends with or something like that. Just know that if you're going to this artist because you're like, oh my God, they're like, oh, I love it, they're like one of the best, it's unlikely that you can pay what their hourly rate for clients is or anything like that, right? You're offering to pay to just make it so, just to do something to recoup the time that it takes to teach. But it's probably, you know, yeah, it's unlikely that you're going to make it worth their time beyond what they could be making working for a client, right? So you do kind of need to offer to pay. Be as generous with it as you can, and yeah, I don't think anyone would be offended at all. But yeah, cast a wide net, because even beyond money, a lot of artists just don't want to teach. You know, they don't feel comfortable as teachers, or they don't know how they would teach or something like that. So even if the money was right, a lot of artists will still just say no because they're not teachers, you know, or they don't see why they would teach their methods or how someone else could learn them or something like that. Some artists don't think art can be taught, right? So they will be unlikely to take someone on as a mentee, even if the price is right. So cast a wide net. You know, you're going to need to find someone who's like the right combination of a bunch of things. All these references that we're drawing right now, at least, are from Yanni Baker's costume poses pack on Proco. There's a lot more than these. I just picked the ones that are safe for work for YouTube. There's many more. Do you think that I should start figure skating? I want to and don't want to. I'm confused. I want to. You should absolutely start figure skating. You should absolutely start figure skating. Start today. Like, leave right now and go start figure skating. Get a coach. Get a really expensive pair of ice skates. Start doing triple axels and reverse camels or whatever it is. Give him the old dancing top hat. Hit him with the Stunner Supreme. Or my favorite figure skating move, Christmas Fatso. Just get really good at that stuff right now, today. In fact, you're behind. Get good at figure skating yesterday. I don't want you here, man. This obviously isn't the place for you. You should be on the rink. You should be out on the ice. Where you belong. You should be with the legends of carving the cold. How did you get into teaching originally? What was your first job? I'm at a crossroads with careers, but I love how you're able to teach and yet draw a lot of awesome and quality personal work too. I'm a fan of it too. What was my first job? Well, I have spent most of my art time being a commercial artist, you know, doing concept design work, architectural design work, illustration, things like that. My first job, did you ask me how? What was my first job? My first job was working on a old MMORPG. I say it's old, it might still be around. It was called, oh god, what was it called? All Odds, I want to say? I believe it was Russian. At least it was made by a Russian developer. That was my first job. Did a bunch of costume set designs for All Odds. It was 1,000 years ago. But yeah, I do really teaching is super fun because unless your teaching is very well, I've structured it very carefully. It'd be different if my teaching was focused on teaching a very particular part of art, but because my teaching is sort of more about the individual artists and generalizing to the career stuff that doesn't really get covered in a lot of online teaching, I can really make those points while drawing whatever I want, which is indeed great. Truly a lot of fun. Some people don't like drawing whatever they want. It gives them existential dread, and they need someone to tell them what to draw. Not me. Hey Steven, how did you find your passion? I didn't find it. It found me. It descended upon me like a dark winged raven in the middle of the night when I was only a child. It got its deep talons in me. It brought a horrendous, terrifying face down level with mine. A beak, long, dark, dripping ichor. It opened slowly, and it said, "Steven Zapata, you work for me now." And I've been drawing ever since. Don't do it, dog. They can't hear you. You don't need to say anything. Just let them walk by. Go back to bed. Hi, do you do drawing every day? I sure do. Well, most times. Most days. And the vast majority of days. But I also don't, I don't get bent out of shape if I skip days. I don't hold myself in a mind prison like that. I've shown myself over and over and over again over the years that I'll always come back. So I really don't worry about a day or two here. When you got those first concept gigs, how did you get them? Did you need to show you had a degree? I'd love to get gigs like that, but it's hard to be a business person. No, you don't need degrees for stuff like that. People just want the work to look good. I don't think that has changed in the intervening years. Being a business person is indeed hard though, but if you want to make a living out of art, you're going to have to do at least some of that. There's no way around that. And that particular first gig that I got off of an open art test on the internet. I don't really see those very much anymore online, but back then it was a little bit more common. They just put out some resource images, explained what the art test was, and they said if you're interested, just do it, send us the final, and if it's good enough, we will contact you. And that's what I did. But that was just my first gig. It didn't last very long. And my jobs after that were through connections, not through open art tests. They came from recommendations from my friends and things like that, which I would highly recommend, if it's at all possible for you. I would highly recommend not being an isolated hermit in a world that extremely values personal connection. I would advise having friends in person and showing the world that you are not a scary sociopath lacking completely in empathy or emotional intelligence. It goes a long way. I'm going to fix the music here for a second, or at least try to. I'm going to go to... Give me 1 second here. All right, hopefully it cuts out a little less now. Thanks, Con. I appreciate that. You're American, right, Steven? How come I never hear you talk about guns and freedom? 'Cause it's a given, baby. I am American. That's true. Yeah, shape design is very abstract, milky. I don't have any easy answers for that. I'm currently working on a Principles of Design long-form course, and shapes are a big part of it. And unfortunately, I'm only made more aware from writing chapters on shapes, which are becoming pages and pages long, and their videos are basically becoming half-hour-long short films. It's made very clear to me that there are indeed no easy answers. It's a very complex subject to try to communicate. So I'm let's do another sketch. Can't be getting hung up. Everybody cover your ears, it's pencil sharpening time. More sketches. Let the onslaught of sketches continue. This is my happy place right now. Just overlapping sketch after sketch after sketch. Relaxing, vibing. Just doing a little anatomy. Looking at forms. I also like just spending like a longer period of time on like one little part of the body. Like saying like, all right, I'm just doing torsos over and over again. Just doing 10s on those, 15s on those. Spine of the scapula. Here is its ridge going down that way. While the trapezius's fibers pull upward above the scapula, but it's interesting that you've got it's got the scapular portion over here, and then it has the portion that is more associated with the neck and the front of the shoulder. And it's interesting how much further in front, or towards us, not in front, this is the back, but it's interesting how if you could rotate this as a 3D model, this part of the trapezius is so much closer to us than this part, but you can't tell in a photograph. You know, they just look like they're on the same plane, but there's actually a big Z-plane distance there. At least on a big guy like Yanni here, there is. Not on me. On me, there's not much distance there at all. Is it normal to make something you are proud of, something you consider a good-looking drawing, and the very next day making something horrible. I feel like if I lost all of my powers. Yeah, that's completely normal. Because every individual drawing is a puzzle, it's not an iteration of something that you just have well in hand, that you're going to do it right every time. Every new picture that's worth making is a puzzle, a unique puzzle. Sometimes the nature of that puzzle-like quality comes down to the difference between like an iron horseshoe puzzle and a Rubik's Cube, and it's like every time you're sitting down to do a puzzle, it's actually a different kind of puzzle. But even if you have things pretty narrowed down, the configuration of a Rubik's Cube is different every time, right? So there's going to be days where the other conditioning factors in your life, like how nutritionally balanced your breakfast was, or the rude thing that your mother said to you that morning, are going to intervene with your ability to solve puzzles. So yeah, you're just going to get it right some days, and on other days you're going to mess it up. And it's like the better you are, you're going to have a better average, right? It's going to be more likely that you're going to have a good day, or even when you have a bad day, it's going to look all right, right? But everyone, no matter what their skill level is, especially internally, even if other people outside of them can't tell, internally, each artist is going to have really severe ups and downs. You're going to have some days where you're just mainlining the secret truth of the universe, and oh man, everybody who's walking around has no idea that I am the best artist who ever lived. Oh my god, if they only knew. And then the next day you're going to be like, Mom never should have had me. Like, why'd she do that? I feel bad for her, Like, if she had only known better or had better guidance, she just would have, she would have skipped this one, The world doesn't need me, and we'd all be a little better off if I wasn't around. And you're just going to oscillate between those two until you have a very non-art related insight of self-love and self-respect, where you stop wishing that you weren't born. But that has nothing to do with art, so I won't talk about it. How do you break down an artist's style you're trying to imitate? Do you just do it and have epiphanies, or do you put on a scientific hat and dissect it? Either way works for a different kind of artist, honestly. I like to just do it and then have epiphanies, but someone like my friend Ahmed definitely puts on a more scientific hat. It just depends on your temperament. Do what feels right to you. Also, watch out for getting too caught up trying to emulate someone's style. It's impossible. The way someone who's really skillful draws is, it's like a bundle, a conglomeration, a complete final effect that is influenced by everything that ever happened to them in their life. And their life is not your life, so it is truly impossible to draw like another person in the most robust sense, right? You can come close or sort of be a ripoff and things like that, but no artist can truly copy the style of another very virtuosic and high-level artist. You can copy pieces, right? You can, of course, copy particular drawings, but you can't draw like them. in without some sort of reference. It's just people don't share brains like that. So use it as a touchstone, use it to learn things, but always remember that you must move on and you must seek what you do, not what others do. Wow, you guys really like pasta, huh? Jeez. Do you know any great artists who began in their 20s, or is every master someone who started as a child? No. Tons of great artists start in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s. Stop wasting your time thinking about that stuff. Just draw. If you're looking for reasons that you should not make art or not practice, there's nothing but them. Also, searching for reasons not to be creative is the lowest level of creativity. But trust me, you're not being rational, you're not being thoughtful, you're not being critical, you're not being like a smart person, you're not being like, oh, evidence, like, oh, I'm weighing am I doing the right thing? No. It's creativity. You're still just a creative person. It's just that you haven't developed your inner steel, so you're just wasting your creativity on finding new, exciting, novel-worthy ways to be negative and to make sure that you do nothing. Like, catch your brain in the middle of that thought crime and just be creative instead. Does Steven ever draw landscapes? I've always wanted to see. I imagine he'd start off with a beautiful hillside, then it suddenly becomes hell. Yes, I do draw landscapes on occasion. I do mostly environmental stuff for clients usually, actually. Not landscapes though, I mostly do interiors, architectural designs and things like that. I've definitely gone out and painted like plein air many times. It's been a while, many years now, but I used to do that quite a bit. Went on a painting trip once alone across, up the California coast. Just camped out in beautiful places, hiked beautiful places, brought my watercolors with me and just set up every day and painted something. Learned a lot about light, color, the way that everything is linked. You know, the color determines the value is intimately linked with the drawing. There's a certain interesting determinism to the landscape where it's like, all right, well, if it's this time of day and the sky is like this and there's this many clouds blocking the sun, then that means that the total luminosity that's available is like this amount. And that means that the contrast between light and shadow is going to be somewhere in this range, and the difference between the edges of light and shadow are going to be like this. And if there's only that much light available, then it means that the values are going to be somewhere in this range. And if the values are in that range, then there's certain colors that just can't be produced in that value range. And everything just fits together so perfectly, like a puzzle. Obviously, you have artistic license and you can change things, but I honestly learned more just by looking, just by like being amazed at how the physics of the environment just determines everything that you're seeing. All right, let's do another sketch. Do you keep all your art? These days, most of it. I've given some to friends and things like that. I haven't really been selling it. Not sure about selling originals, I'll be honest. Goodbye, Arctic Monkey. Have you ever drawn Doge, the funny yellow dog? He is quite majestic. No, I have not. I've drawn my dog, but I have not drawn Doge. But I think at this point, drawing Doge would be some sort of free advertising for some crypto thing. So, for legal purposes, I can't do it for free. I don't do anything for free these days, baby. That's how artists stay poor. Doing any traditional painting these days? Not painting. Not really, no. Still in my years-long drawing kick. I think I'll go back into painting when I move. I just don't have room. I just really don't have room for it. It's a consequence of living in New York City. I just have to be completely honest that I do not have room to paint. That's my situation. I mean, obviously I could. It's just, it would be very uncomfortable. And I don't feel enough of a pull towards painting right now to be worth the discomfort and life disturbances of barely being able to walk around my bedroom. But when I move, I'll go back to trying some painting stuff. Because I have been wanting to paint, but the stuff that I specifically want to do is I want to do, what's it called? I want to do indirect painting methods. I want to experiment with like glazes and stuff like that. And I need to leave paintings out for weeks to dry to do that. So I need just like a permanent painting space where I can leave big canvases out, doing nothing, drawing for weeks at a time. You know, fumes and all that. I also just screw color. Like, who cares about color? Color sucks. Form's where it's at. Do you read manga? Actually, I just wanted to ask you about Innocent manga specifically. Have you seen it? I have seen art from Innocent, but I don't really read manga. The only manga I've read, and I've only read the beginning of it, is Berserk. But yeah, mostly. I'll be honest. I'm mostly reading it as research. It was just too many times of people saying, like, Steven, you should read Berserk. Berserk will be your heart and soul. You'll wish that Berserk was your son, that your wife gave biological birth to Berserk. Berserk will be your new religion. Steven, you should read Berserk. It will be the only thing that matters to you. You will sacrifice the love of your family and the love of your friends so that you can just read Berserk more. You should try it. Steven, you should read Berserk. It was a lot of that. So I was like, I might as well just find out what's actually going on here. So that's why I've read Berserk. Otherwise, I don't really read manga. I'm going to sharpen my pencils. Why don't you read One Punch Man manga? Says one. Isn't that your manga? One. I think you're a little biased. Let's draw Yanni dressed as a farmer, the most ripped farmer ever. Oh, that's my stopwatch. Do you suggest water fasting for inspiration and health? Absolutely. You should also put butter in your shoes whenever you're drawing. Butter has the exact right balance of electrolytes, neutrinos, and weak nuclear forces to channel irreplaceable drawing rays from the center of the earth. So fast water, put butter in your shoes. Shout out to Stapleton Kearns. It's so windy here today in New York. The wind is howling outside. Yeah, I guess I just don't really read comics. Really more of like audiobook kind of a guy these days. It's really just the, I don't know, I'll be honest, as the years have worn on, it just becomes it's just a time investment thing at this point, you know? It requires so much time out of every single day of my life to keep up my drawing skills that, yeah, if I can't listen to it while I draw, I really won't watch it at this point, you know? Or consume it. Like, I really like Berserk, but it's just, I have to read it. I have to physically read it, you know? I have to look at the pictures in order and read them. And it's like, there's like a million panels, you know? It's like been around for, what is it, 30 years or something like that? It's so long. It's so unbelievably long. And they're all like that. All the mangas that everybody recommends are these ancient, epic legacies that just are going to take up a ridiculous amount of your time. And that's awesome. That's why they can leave such a strong impression. It's just, that's also why I don't read them, you know? Or any comics for that matter. To sketch. That was an 8-minute. Let's see, what do we want to do? What do I want to do? Quite a few options here. Oh man, that one's... That's a weird drawing. I don't know if I can do this one well, but I kind of just want to do it to study it. Just to study that weird neck position. My gut tells me that is so odd that even if I draw it very accurately, it will always look kind of weird because we're just not used to ever seeing that, but I want to learn from it. So let's take a look. Yeah, we were in a cockroach comic a long time ago.
Yeah, one says, "Hey Steven, I remember you and Ahmed were in some cockroach comic from long back." Yeah, that was something Med made, and I'll stop my commentary there. I won't say anything else about that. Because if I tried to pretend to understand his reasons for making that, I would be deceiving you. Steven, what's the purpose of the stopwatch for you? It has a lot of purposes. It might be the most important drawing tool on my table besides the paper and pencil that I'm drawing on. First off, it gives a realistic assessment of how long things take, which is very useful for tracking time for client hours and stuff like that. But there's a more subtle benefit to it that comes along with that, which is that it reveals to you how little patience you have and how quickly you are inclined to judge a drawing and to want to give up on it. That was the biggest thing that it taught me. I only had to use the timer for a few months, and I've been using it for years and years. But within just a couple months, it really rewired my brain on what a negative jerk I am. And how, yeah, I'll be drawing for what will feel like a half hour or 45 minutes. And in that time, I'll start building up like, oh my God, this is bad. This is going really poorly. This drawing sucks. I need to jump ship to another one. There's too much sunk cost here. It'd be better if I just started over or did something else. I can't believe that I'm sucking so bad, even though I'm putting in all this work. All of this nonsense, these lies, would start building up, again, like I said, in what would feel like a half hour. And if you asked me to put money on it, I would say it was that much time. And using the stopwatch revealed that it was more like, oh, you've drawn for 7 minutes. Oh. And then after a lot of experiencing that over and over and over again, I had to realize that I was not experiencing a Twilight Zone-like liminal space of distorted time in my bedroom. What I was experiencing was that I am a deluded jerk who decides that drawings have failed after 7 minutes, even though the drawings that I love took weeks or months to execute. And it changed my life. It really changed my life. It made me calm down a lot. And now I don't even take a drawing seriously until I've spent an hour on it. And I don't get afraid anymore about fixing drawings. I don't care if a drawing looks bad after 3 hours. Even 3 hours to me is just like, yeah, you can fix it. That's nothing. That's nothing. You've spent 3 hours, that means you've spent 0 time on it. That's how much time you've spent on it. Insignificant. It also has a nice ritualistic aspect where it's like when you hit the button, you know, I have one of these that has a really clear button. It's like when I hit it, now it's time to draw, and it clicks my brain into it. And I also do a thing where I let myself take as many breaks as I want. So I can mess with my music, I can go on Reddit, I can check blogs, I can go to Instagram, I can go read the news. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I let myself take as many breaks as I want. I just have one rule, which is that every time I do it, I have to stop the clock. And that's enough. That does it for you. It's like when you have to do that every time, it makes it so that you're less inclined to do this 6 times in 5 minutes. You know, you have to do it, so your brain starts like, oh, I can't do that all the time. And then, like I said, I can take as many breaks as I want, as frequent as I want, but the time on the clock is always giving me an honest assessment of how much time I've actually drawn. So it increases my desire, my momentum to be like, all right, let's get serious. Let's put more time in. Let's put more time in. Let's get the hours in. It also teaches you the freelancer's truth, which is that it takes about 12 hours to put 8 hours of work on the clock. So it helps you get much more realistic with your timings and charging and things like that. So many benefits. So many benefits. Do not use Google Stopwatch. Don't use some tab on a browser. It needs to be a real physical stopwatch on your desk, because you'll just forget to turn the stopwatch off. It'll frustrate you that the times are off, and you'll break the habit, and you'll just stop doing it after a while. The only way you will actually build the habit to a way that it's truly useful is if it's a real physical clock that's on your desk. And I bring it all over the house with me. I go to the kitchen with it when I go draw on the couch. If I need to go read for research for a project, I get to put it all there. It's like it's got to be a separate thing that's sitting on your desk. And if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. That's all right. You're just not as thoughtful as me. That's no big deal. A lot of people are not as thoughtful as me. You're in good company. God, this is such a hard and interesting drawing, because these shapes are just so non-iconic. It's like these shapes, these abstract 2D shapes, are just not what we think of when we think neck, when we think head, when we think back. Like, why am I even seeing that much of the back in a front view, right? It's such a challenging set of shapes, because there's really no recourse but to just draw them accurately. Yeah, I've seen other people talking about that, doing that app that records how long you're on one screen. And I guess that's fine if you really don't do anything else. But I'm switching constantly. I do traditional sketches. I go to my sketchbook. I read. I write. I take notes. I research. I do so many other things that are work that an app that just tracks one thing is like, it's never going to work. And I do tons of stuff that happens on other computers, or I'm reading real books or something like that, and then it can't do that either. Oh, Deirdre, are those Thanksgiving leftovers I smell?
Yeah.
Oh, those the carrots?
Mm-hmm.
Oh god.
There's a lot.
Don't eat them all.
Okay.
Come on, leave some for me. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just put my microphone on top of my drawing pad. That'll do it. Yes, now I can slide this up. Ah, now we're talking, yeah. Is it a bad idea to go to art school just to get more time to draw? Here in Sweden, we get school for free and don't have to pay the same amount as in America. That sounds like a great idea. I'll be honest. I think that's a perfectly good reason. Why not? If you're not incurring debt or something like that, it doesn't seem like a big deal. I mean, you're young. You got plenty of time to change your mind, and most adults do. No one's life goes the way they planned when they were young. Everybody pivots, does something different, does something weird. You'll be alright. You got time. Hi, Hubs.
So do or don't save you more carrots?
Save me carrots. Save me carrots. I know you're pretending to mishear me. Don't eat them all. I don't know how many different ways to put this.
I gave Fanny when she threw it up.
She threw up a carrot?
Yeah.
It was all that glaze. That technically means her diet's going fine, though.
Really?
Well, she didn't get the calories from the carrot. My dog's fat, everybody. It's all carrots for Fanny. Look, it was Thanksgiving for dogs too, alright? They get a lot of treats. Hi, Steve. Do you think it is better to focus on fundamentals like perspective and form before trying to draw full figures? What do you suggest overall for learning how to draw people? I don't think perspective is a big deal if you want to learn how to draw people. In the strict sense, if your end goals are, of course, like putting figures in scenes with dynamic perspectives, then of course, yes, it becomes relevant. But just straight figures in non-super extreme poses, yeah, I really don't think it's much of a priority. It would be useful, but I wouldn't say it's a priority. Form can come later. I think the most important thing to understand in the beginning for drawing people and figures is just structure, not anatomy, right? Structure, just the way one big shape wedges with another. I think that would be the best place to start. I think that's the most essential thing. Anatomy is actually very niche. A lot of artists don't really need anatomy. Take it from someone who loves anatomy and who train their little artist hand off at learning anatomy. If your end goals are mostly drawing people wearing clothes, for example, you just don't need a lot of anatomy, right? Some would be useful. There's always some amount that the anatomy influences the shapes of the clothes underneath and things like that, but it's just not a lot. You really don't need a lot of anatomy. Structure first. Just the big shapes. Don't make him bald in the drawing. I hope you feel bad for telling me what to do. I hope you immediately realized the error of your ways. That was foolish. That was foolish. Dang, this is a tough one. Just have like no muscle memory for these shapes. Which is, of course, why I picked this drawing to study. So When I say it's tough, I mean it's pleasantly tough. It's nice that it's so unusual. And I'm enjoying being unhorsed by it. Did you ever watch that doc where there's like a 2-hour documentary made by an insane person about how Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is like a confession letter for having faked the moon landing? That was fantastic. I love that documentary. I mean, I loved it enough to watch it once. But it's good stuff. Quality material. Definitely high on my list of I love that you actually believe this, you know. One of my favorites. What is it, room 394 or something like that? It's a good one. Alright, I'm gonna get out my other sketchbook. Now I'm done with that sketch. Want to get off the newsprint, draw on something else. Need a little variety now. Alright, so well, let's do a quick review. Let's see what we drew. Let's see what we drew. We drew theseums. These guys, let me zoom out. So here's one sheet, torsos, backs, fun. We got a Conan the Barbarian, Yanni. These we did not do on this screen. But these are more Yanni. I did that one streaming to my patrons on Discord yesterday, and we did these two guys. Do you have any tips on shading with charcoal? Graphite is fine, but when you're using charcoal, I can't seem to get the lights and the darks to look like they're part of the same object. I unfortunately can't help you. I don't really use charcoal ever. So I'm sorry, but I can't help you there. Oh no. I put the sketchbook on top of the radiator and warped it a little bit. Shouldn't have done that. That'll probably bounce out. Where did you get your refs? You can follow the links in the description to Yanni's packs on Proco. These are from Yanni's costume poses pack. Like I said, they are available on Proco. Let's, I could finish that. Nah, let's keep doing some refs. We can draw on this page, and we can go over to that page. And then everyone can be happy and experience joy. And that would be good. More joy for more human beings sounds good. Do you think tracing helps develop muscle memory while starting out, learning to draw shapes and values? It can. You just have to do it with wisdom. Don't let it make you sloppy or lazy. It's actually quite difficult to trace nicely, so it is a skill on its own. Let's see what we'll draw here. Part of this do I want to do? Do I want to do the whole thing? Oh, it's Death. Hi, Death. Hi, the embodiment of death. Nice to see you, Death. Death, I think about you every day. So good to see you. Hello from Ukraine. Dude, I wanted to say you're awesome. Thanks for your inspiration. No problem. My pleasure. I am equally inspired by you, Death. I think about my mortality constantly. not wide enough on the bottom here. All right, I always have to shut up there when I do the first blush at the proportions on something like this. It's funny, so much of drawing is doing in like, what was that? That was like 5 minutes flat. So much of drawing is doing in 5 minutes these very minimal strokes that you're kind of like locked into them, and then you're gonna render them for 4 hours. So I always really need to just like be quiet there for that very first attack. What's going on here? Do you have any advice for finding your goals? You got to look within, look deep within. That's really always the answer. Is not 42, as much as I love a good bit of non-dualism. Some of your messages saying, now I'm sleeping in front of my computer, this is my sleeping brain. Yeah, it's all right. Just take a few deep breaths. You're having a manic episode. You're freaking out a little bit. You're infuriating people in the chat, and you're upsetting everybody. So I'm just going to kindly ask you, and I really mean it. I really mean it. With the utmost respect. I'm really, I can be really playful a lot of the times, and I can be sort of like rude in a jocular way, but I really mean it. With the utmost respect, all due respect. Stop typing now. Shut up. And just enjoy the stream. Alright, so let's run a little diagnostic here and see. What's got to get balanced out? I missed a shadow shape here. All right. Now my horizontal proportions are what I'm very bad at, so I gotta pay attention here to see how I eyeballed my side to sides here. Let me move this stuff around. Hmm. Need some water. All right, what's up? Thank you, Hubs. My pleasure. I do love to draw live. Thank you, Dan. Ahmed says, have you played Dark Souls? I have. I played Dark Souls Remastered. Have not beat it. I stopped after I got past the... What did I do? What was the last thing I did? I think I stopped after I got past the Capra Demon. I think that's when I stopped. I made like all of my progress on Dark Souls on like one very long flight to Japan. And then I got very distracted by life and I sort of fell off and I didn't go back to it. I think there's definitely a thing with Souls games where if you lose momentum, there can be a lot of resistance to picking them up again because you're like, you spawn in and you're like, that's what I look like? That's the weapon I was using? What am I doing here? Where am I? What did I unlock? What bosses did I kill? What am I supposed to do next? Like, it's really easy to forget completely where you were and what you were moving towards. This lat sticks out too much. I think I kind of like it. I don't think it looks off because it just looks muscular. I think definitely all of this is supposed to be taller. Should be longer vertically. You're never going to get the proportions perfect when you're eyeballing, right? If I was going to get out the knitting needle and do comparative measurements, I could get them, well, ridiculously close with enough time, but for all intents and purposes, you can't get it perfect because you're not a copying machine and you're drawing freehand and you want the vigor of drawing freehand, but you just want to like know where you're messing up and you want to ask yourself if the mistakes that you're making are mistakes you actually have wiggle room on, or if they're things that are really going to stick out like a sore thumb, you know? You're never going to get it perfect, but you want to make the better mistakes. You want to make the more acceptable mistakes. Do you remember how to get past the Capra demon? I don't. It was a bit ago. Hey Steven, do you like to draw insects and other small critters? I have before. I don't really draw just them, but I definitely my design sense for like creatures and for monsters and stuff like that is heavily influenced by insects. It's always like a mix of anatomical distortions and then insect design language and like deep sea creature design language. Do you have a schedule for these streams or is it random? It's mostly random. I'm usually drawing in the morning-ish. And then it's more rare that I stream in the evenings or late afternoons. My go-to drawing time is in the AM. Before I have built up a crusty patina of disappointment in myself. When I feel fresh. What's the time for you? It is 1:53 p.m. for me. Hi, Steven. How to improve observation skills? Any tips? Observe, 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 observe. Let me think. Well, draw a lot from life. Draw a lot from reference. Try to check your work. I like to take, if I spent a long time on a study or something like that, I like to take a photograph of it with my phone, just something really simple. And I'll put it in Photoshop and I'll put it up against the reference and I'll use some drawing guides. I'll just draw some lines on it to check how close I got with the horizontal and vertical proportions. That's not to say that what you're trying to do when you draw is nail those proportions, right? I mean, maybe that's one of your goals, but it doesn't have to be, especially if your goal is to draw from imagination. But one of the nice things that that does is that it just shows you how you tend to mess up, right? Like, I tend to get my horizontal proportions very bad, but my vertical proportions are pretty good when I'm eyeballing them. So I think checking your work to some capacity is good, but it doesn't need to be some sort of slavish, like, all right, I need to check my work to correct it kind of thing. It's more like an educational tool. It's a diagnostic tool. And always be observing, you know? Always look at the world around you when you're online at the bank or something like that. Always look at the light, look at the values, ask yourself, why is it this light in here? Why is it in this dark in here? Why is that shadow making this shape? Why do these people cut this silhouette against the light of the windows coming through that wall over there? Like, always be observing. Always have the painter's mind activated. Always be using the designer's eye. Always be asking yourself, like, how would I draw it? And imagine what you would do or what artistic decisions you would make, right? Because you'd always need to make one, right? The world is not a given when it comes to art. So you're in the right area if when you're looking at the world, you're asking yourself, like, what would I change? You know, would I make this lighter? Would I make this darker? Would I group this with that or group this with that instead? And be asking yourself those questions all the time. How do I look within myself in terms of art goals? That's a really tough question, you know? Like, you've got to... The advice that I usually give people is to start journaling for a little bit. I guess the real exercise that I give is start journaling for a week or two, and the exercise to run is pretend that everything that has ever happened to you, including the random things, right? Like, I'm talking about your greatest trauma as well as the fact that you prefer green tea over black tea. Assume that all of it is perfectly pregnant with meaning and that it always has been and you've just been missing it. And then just start writing. And if that sounds confusing, that's fine. That's sort of that's the territory you're in, right? But just assume it all means something. Assume it's all perfectly meaningful. It's all pregnant with meaning, that it's all connected, and that it's all profound. Every single little thing and big thing. Remove your judgments of what is actually big, what is actually small, what is significant, what is insignificant, and just write about it. Write about it for a protracted period, and see what you learn. See what you learn about yourself and what you actually think about the world and what you want to say, what you find both consciously fascinating and interesting, and what you find unconsciously fascinating and interesting. That is equally important for art making. I'm looking at the teeny tiny thumbnail of the reference photo in the feed of my live stream to sort of simplify it and give me an idea of what the shading priorities are. So. Do you have any advice on creating dynamic form and poses? Well, for poses, it's usually more dynamic if you twist as much stuff against other stuff as you can. That's usually the pocket rule. Beyond that, beyond a pocket rule like that, it really does become a specific question about the kind of poses that you're drawing. You know, there's going to be different ways to make a dynamic pose for a dancer than there is to make a dynamic pose for a football player. You get what I'm saying? So it really goes into figuring out what you're actually trying to communicate with that pose, with that particular piece of storytelling, and doing a deep dive on that and finding the most interesting ways to convey it. But yeah, as generalized stuff that makes poses dynamic, bending things against each other a lot. So if the torso is facing towards you, bend the head away. And then, or if the head is pointing this way, let's say, bend the torso this way, and then bend the legs that way, right? So that they're all pointing in generalized different directions. That automatically creates twist, it creates variety, it creates depth in space. That's a good general piece of advice. What other general dynamic pose advice? Really hard for general stuff. You know what Frazetta did that worked a lot? He would hide a limb. So he would only draw one arm or one leg and then arrange the pose such that the other arm was completely hidden, unseen. And there's something, you can invent poses around that, and it's such like an unusual choice, and it's so visual, right? Because it veers away from the touch-based instinct to like, oh, well, I know there's a leg there, I have to put a leg. That it feels dynamic and it feels authentic and like it's based on real life kind of for free if you do that. That's a good way to add some weirdness and some dynamism to a pose. As for dynamic form, that's tough. I would check out Secrets of Shading. That's what I would say. Unfortunately, my answer to that question is like 2 hours long, and it's in that video. I'm talking specifically about the chapter, which is it? The chapter where I draw the core shadow on a shape twice, and the different way I throw the core shadow gives a different meaning to what the three-dimensional form of the structure is. That, to me, is the like hour-and-a-half long answer to how you make dynamic form, or what you need to understand to draw dynamic forms. Luke says my reference photo right now is Kramer from Seinfeld. What is... Oh my god. Chaos. What are you doing? That's scary. That's really scary. I like to think that it's a reference photo for something that's not Kramer. Like you're using it as a reference photo for a goblin or something like that. Like it's just like you want a character who has a Kramer mood to them. I'm getting hungry, people. I skipped lunch. I was like, I gotta stream. I got the stream demon in me. Can't be eating lunch right now. And now here I am on the other side of stream like, dang, lunch sounding pretty good. Sounding pretty good to both me and the demon. But let's take this drawing a little further. This is a stupid question. No. Well, I won't say no. Let's see. I'll read the rest of it. And then, you know what? I'll be the judge of it. We'll see. I'll let you know if I think it's stupid. I'll let you know. And I'll be honest. This is a stupid question, but can one start learn anatomy without a good understanding of perspective? I'm specifically asking about inventing figures. Did perspective help you with figures? That is a really stupid question, but I'm still going to answer it. I'm kidding. There's no... Stuff like art is so opaque and so weird, and there's so little good information out there that there's really... Those questions are never stupid. It's all really, really flexible. Yeah, I think you can learn anatomy without a really strong understanding of perspective. Like, you'll need a basic understanding of what it means for, you know, something to be in front of something else and things like that. But for anatomy strictly construed, like what anatomy really is by definition, no, you don't need any, you don't really need any perspective knowledge. Even for generalized figure drawing, anatomy is really, perspective is really most useful for placing the figure on the ground plane, having them leaping through the air and stuff like that. But when I say that, don't think I mean like technical anatomy, right? Like not anatomy, perspective. Technical perspective, like the stuff that you'll read in like a drafting manual or for how to draw buildings and things like that. Yeah, it's mostly irrelevant to drawing figures, even in the most dynamic of poses, right? Like the place where they overlap is the classic thing that you see where you pretend that a part of the figure, like an arm or hand, is sort of inside of a box, an imaginary box, and then you're looking at the perspective of that imaginary box that contains that hand. But you can never do the technical math to figure out the positions of those boxes relative to each other and then shove the body into them. Nobody draws that way. It's just a useful mental tool. And honestly, it's a useful mental tool for beginners. It's just a way to introduce the concept to them. But no one really, I mean, I don't think that way when I draw, right? If something goes wrong, I can think that way. But the figure's just too fuzzy and soft and mushy and malleable and ever-changing. And it does obey the laws of perspective, but technical perspective is just not practically useful for drawing it. Again, it's useful for placing a figure in a scene if a scene is really strong on perspective in general, right? Like a city. Like, obviously, yes, then it's super important because you're going to get it completely wrong when you drop that person into the city street if you already don't understand the whole city's already wrong, right? If you don't know perspective, you messed up the whole city. So, of course, the person's going to be messed up too. But, yeah, for just like figure drawing characters on their own, and yeah, even just straight up dynamic figures, like comic book style and things like that, you'll see a comic book artist draw the city one way and the figure another. You know, they're not using the same modalities. The number one thing that makes you better at drawing figures is drawing tons of figures. That's what you need to do. You need to fill not one, not two, not a few sketchbooks with figures. You need to fill hundreds of sketchbooks with figures. That will make you good at drawing figures. And don't worry too much about the what or the how. Just trust me. Trust me. Please trust me. As someone who's been on the path, as someone who's done all of the exercises, who's practiced all sorts of things, who's done tons of mileage, who's done tons of weird stuff and projects and things like that. Man, if I could just make you believe one thing, it's that if you draw 500 figures, you will be better after the 500, right? It's just that most people will not do it. They'll refuse to do it. They'll find in the middle of doing the high numbers, they'll find some reason to quit or that it's not working fast enough, right? And that's the art devil. That's the art Satan that ends art careers. You just can't get carried away by that, you know? Steven, how do you fill sketchbooks with a particular study without getting dang bored? Don't do anything you're bored of. Stop doing stuff you find boring. And if you're doing that stuff that you find boring because someone told you you need to do it, then no, they're wrong. They needed to do it. It was what was right for them. Don't do anything that you find boring. Why do you want to do boring art? Why do you want to do stuff that you wish you weren't doing? Dump it, drop it. Do the stuff that excites you. Art takes way too long to get good at, to waste your time doing parts of it that you don't like doing. Don't do it. Do the stuff that's fun for you, that makes you want to fill sketchbooks with that kind of stuff, right? It's very worth it to pursue your real joys because they make you want to work. And then you don't have to be a martyr to grit or anything like that. You just automatically want to get better and improve and spend more time drawing because it's a blast. And that's what you want. That's the real deal right there. That's the real goal. Don't do stuff you don't like. And if your teachers tell you, no, you have to do it. No, because I told you, you have to do it. It's like, all right, well, that's their fault. And if they have that power over you because you're in a school where they can tell you to do that, that's your fault. You know, you got to work within those systems if that's the system that you're in, but none of that stuff is real. This is art. It's not science. It's not history. You don't have to do anything that you find boring. That's probably counterproductive. You need to be ridiculously interested in this stuff to survive the marathon that is making art. You know? If you get caught up doing stuff that you find boring, you're just screwing yourself. You're just guaranteeing that you're going to burn out, that you're not going to make it the 15 to 20 years that it takes to get good at this stuff. Is it better to draw features isolated while trying to get better at drawing heads, or to draw them all together every time? My gut says draw them all together all the time. I think you could get better either way, and maybe a little bit of time with the features in isolation is useful, but so much of the niceness of the features comes from them feeling shoved into the face correctly. So yeah, my gut says probably the most bang for your buck is probably doing them all together all the time. Oh, Steven, loving your I don't give up attitude. Yeah. I think I'm right. It's less that I don't care. It's that it's less that I don't care, and I think it's, I really do think I'm saying that because I'm convinced I'm right about that. I'm convinced that it's not useful to waste your time doing stuff that you don't like. It's almost like a I care a lot attitude. I care enough to say stuff that I really believe that a lot of other art teachers don't agree with. This model is ripped. He sure is. Bought your shading video and love it, but I was wondering how you create volume for the muscle striations and veins arteries. It's the exact same thing as the main principles that I go over in the video. It's just that they're the final layer of the contrast hierarchy. They're the most subtle, most nothing, most barely there forms. But I treat them just like I treat everything else that I explain in that video. For things like that, I usually just draw them with the stump because I need them to be so low contrast. I don't even draw them with the pencil. It's like if the big muscle shape that they're sitting on is done well, if it's done well and the contrast is controlled, then they'll pop off just enough to feel right. But yeah, they're all the way at the... If you don't put them all the way at the hierarchy of importance, they'll always look wrong. They'll look pasted on, they won't look 3D. But they're just too small to convey their 3D-ness on their own. They need to rely on the three-dimensionality of the bigger muscle underneath.
Want me to put in a pizza or something for you?
You ate the carrots, didn't you?
No, I didn't. It's not enough.
What else is there? Anything else?
It's not much.
Alright, I guess a pizza's fine.
Baby burger.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'll do that. Why not? But I can do it. Oh, I'm glad that they've been helpful, Great White Sufi. Steven, you're one of the few I've listened to that has really pushed doing what's fun. Just starting out, and everywhere I turn to for some form of guidance is all this skill-based drilling that after a week was not enjoyable. All right, let me put my pencil down here for a second and just rant. You are encountering that because the nature of online art education requires or incentivizes for the education to feel objective, like it's something that can really be delivered in a video or in something that you can pick up or something that can be read in a pithy blog post or something like that, right? Think about it. It's asymmetrical, right? You have to take something. The instructor doesn't know who you are or what your goals are or what your dreams are or what you're trying to do. And everyone needs to pretend that it's guaranteed that you will derive value from this situation, right? Of course, that is going to produce a situation where all that can be shared, all that can be taught is skill-based. Is just your best shot for that is to pretend that everyone will benefit from this objective thing and that everybody needs that. And I'm an art instructor. I sell stuff. I teach online. I teach in college. If anyone is incentivized to hold the line on that and say that that's true, it would be me. But let me tell you honestly, that is crazy. Of course, that isn't true. How could that be true? Of course that's not true. Art is about you, right? We like to pretend, right? And we like to put out this vibe on the internet that it's not about you, right? We like to put out a vibe that says art is about you being like Karl Kapinski, or art is about you being like Kim Jong-gi, or anything like that, right? And it isn't. That's neurotic. That's insane. And the people who would be put in those positions of doing art means doing it like me, that's not how they got good at it. That's not how they did it, right? They went within. They did what they really liked. They did what they enjoy the most. And at every juncture, instead of drinking whatever cup some random person handed them, they chose what they wanted, right? They made a decision for themselves. They instead put all of their energy and all of their interest into the things that brought them joy, even if it wasn't stuff other people could help them with or hand them, right? That is what art is about. And yes, it's extremely lacking to cover that in online art education because you need to, there's no other way to teach that part but to have faith in the student. And most art teachers, and especially in the asymmetrical art system, they don't have faith in the student. Why? Because they don't know them, right? They would if they knew them, but when you don't know them, how could you possibly have faith in them, right? And then when you open a class and you just bring people in and who are these strangers and things like that, people are scared, afraid to have faith in the student. But that creates an insurmountable wall that does not allow the teaching of the most important part of art, the most useful thing a teacher could do for a student in art, which is to just sit across a table from them and say, whatever your dream is, whatever you want to do, right? The comic you want to make, the thing that you want to write, the paintings that you want to do, I'm just here for it. That's all this is. You're just going to give it a real attempt, maybe an attempt that no one has ever given you the permission to even try, right? And then I'm just going to, in good faith, give you honest feedback and help you with it. My God, how did we miss that? Like, just help them with the picture, right? Instead of passing the buck for 15 years, pretending that they're not supposed to be doing the thing they want to be doing now, today, here, just, nah, you're not good enough. Wait, somewhere else, some other time. That's why no one makes anything. That's why no one ever gets good at art. That's why no one ever does the thing that they want to do, because they pass the buck for a decade and then life hits them like a train. Someone dies, they have a baby. Now you don't have time, right? That's crazy. No. today. If you want to make a comic book, start it today. If you want to make a particular kind of painting, right? You want to paint paintings that look like Bekchinsky, like Giger. You want to do drawings that look like Karl Kopinski. Do that first, no matter what, every day. Every day. Do it today and then never give up, no matter what. You want to practice, you want to do skill-based stuff, you do that for 2 hours after you did the stuff you love first. And anybody who tells you you shouldn't be doing that is a thoughtless, arrogant fool who you can happily disregard without a second thought. I promise you that. I promise you that. And I hope that I'm putting my money where my mouth is when I say that, because when I teach a drawing workshop, that's all I do. I'll take anybody who signs up and I just ask them, what's your dream? And for a month, I just give them feedback. And I never tell them to not do their dream. I never tell them, all right, you should be rendering spheres right now. They tell me. Some people, I can't get through to them. And they're like, no, Steven, I have to be rendering spheres right now, and you have to help me render spheres. And it's like, all right, if that's what you're paying me for. But I never, ever tell a student to do that, right? I can tell them it might be a good idea to practice it in the off time, like at night before bed or something like that. But when I have students, I tell them, what's your dream? If you don't know what your dream is, we're going to figure it out. And then you're going to do it every day, and you're going to show me, and I'm going to give you input. And that's it. That's all teaching art ever was. This new system that we're all in right now, this is not 20 years old. It's not how art was taught for all of art history. Art was taught by people doing the project, and the master who was in the other room would come over and be like, try this, do that. And that's it. Yes, the rant's over now. The rant's over now. Got me all worked up. That rant poisoned my blood with adrenaline. Thank you for the kind reviews of the rant. I really appreciate it. Like the rant on Rotten Tomatoes. Share the rant with your friends. The rant is going to be available on Netflix pretty soon. X Ren X is drawing something because they want to. That's great. Yeah, go snuggle your cat, Boxer Wing. How do you help students find what they want to do? Oh, it's a series of, it depends on where they're stuck, you know. It's always individual. That's why I like to teach actual, like, you know, talking with people, interacting with them, talking with them a lot, writing with them, things like that. It's just, it's too individual to give a general prescription. It really does require a sort of, a personal touch. You got to see this kind of person for this kind of temperament with this particular kind of problem. I think this exercise would help them. And that's what I do for all of them. Some people need to write. Some people need to make charts. Some people need to just sketchbook. You know, if they just draw unconsciously in their sketchbook for a while, that will reveal to them what they actually like drawing and things like that. But yeah, not for other people. Other people need to, you know, pull a bunch of reference images and make inspiration boards. Other people need to benchmark off of other things. Other people just need to get serious about career goals. And then what they need to be doing or what they want to do is really more about shutting down their pipe dreams or their unrealistic things and just putting them on a straight shot to fulfilling a career goal within a particular time frame. So it's individual. It's really individual. It's not something I could give a, you know, a general pointer on. Everybody needs something different. Just remember, if you're, like, don't forget, if you hear me say that and you're like, oh, he can't give a general pointer, I need someone to tell me, you know, what I should be doing or what I want to do. It's like, the answer is in you, right? Like, you just, I don't have any magic, right? I don't have any secrets. I don't have some secret way to, like, give you what you should be doing. As a teacher, all I do is, really, I just come in with good faith, right? Some students just need someone who they respect, in heavy air quotes, to sit, make eye contact with them and say, guess what? You've already got the answer. So you tell me what it is, right? And some people just need to hear that, right? They need that moment in order to have the bravery to realize that, they can just pick. You get to pick, right? And it's, no one else's courage is going to do it. Right? It's just whatever you decide for yourself is the right answer, you know? What would you usually say to the career guy? Just curious. It depends on the career. Again, it depends. All our careers are like different, so it depends on the career. It depends on the career and sort of how much work they've already done, if their expectations are realistic or unrealistic, and sort of doing adjustments and stuff there. It's like some people don't have anything in their portfolio and they're like, I've got to get a job in art in 6 months. And it's like, well, that's nice that you need that, but it's not going to happen. You know, the best artists in the world don't make a portfolio in a year. All right, everyone. I'm gonna call it soon because I've been going for 3 hours here, and I'm pretty hungry. So I want to go eat lunch. So I'm gonna put the pencil down for a bit and just answer questions for a few minutes. So if you have anything you want to ask before I go, throw it in. Is there anywhere we could see your professional work, by the way? Not right now. Not on any of my websites, no. I started taking all that stuff down a couple years ago. Or maybe like a year ago, something like that. I'm sure if you just Google my name and art, you'll find a bunch of it still floating around, though. If you Google like yeah, I don't know, if you just look for products. If you Googled stuff like Elder Scrolls, Steven Zapata, things like that, you'll find some of my that stuff will pop up. All right, I'm gonna stop because I'm rushing and I don't want to rush it. Why do you draw in brown? I don't always. It's just for figures like this. It makes sense for it just matches the value range of a general flesh tone better instead of being straight black. Can you quickly draw an example of an ugly shadow shape? That would be impossible for me. I couldn't possibly. All of my shadow shapes are just instinctually interesting and aesthetically pleasing. I couldn't step backwards if I tried. It's just so deeply ingrained. What prompted the rant? I only just got here. I don't even remember. Someone probably just mentioned one of my classic triggers, like I want to get good at drawing, and then I explained why it's impossible to get good at drawing or something like that. So how ambitious can you get before it becomes unrealistic? Or is ambition based less on logic and more on fantasy? I mean, you can be as ambitious as you want, right? And I don't think ambitions are unrealistic. The unrealistic thing for most artists becomes the time scales. The time scales. People who have not worked on projects, worked with teams, or who haven't actually made one of their dreams before, they just have no earthly idea how long it actually takes or how much work it takes. It takes whatever, if you're one of those people, right? If you haven't worked on teams, if you haven't actually been part of a project that has made a thing, and you haven't seen the brutal way whole teams of people need to scope down and get realistic about expectations, and that there's whole people on projects, like business development people and project managers who a huge part of their whole job, their job responsibility is something called expectation management, where they just get on the phone and make people who are paying big money for things understand that their dreams are just way more expensive and time prohibitive than they imagine. If you've never had exposure to that really real part of the world and what it takes to make stuff, however long you think it would take to make something of that you would consider to be like the best, awesome, quadruple it, if you're lucky, quadruple it if you're lucky most of the time. And I'll also say that if you get a realistic expectation of it, you would probably be less inclined to waste your time doing skill-based stuff that is irrelevant for your dream. You would just go for your dream if you really knew how long it was going to take. I think people are confused on a very deep level. They're just like, oh man, if I spend 5 years just practicing my abstract figure drawing and then do the project will go so much faster. Nope. It's going to be 5 years of you kind of dilly-dallying about, and then the project is still going to take another 6 years on its own. Good luck. Yeah. You got to start now. Start today. Get going. Give yourself some realistic expectations. You got to start drawing some pages, making some sheets, finding out how long this stuff actually takes. It's time to get real. Your dreams deserve to be real. That's why you got to get real. Does your wife draw? Yes, but she's like more an architectural designer. She's studying architecture, so they draw, but I'm not saying she doesn't draw like the way I draw. She doesn't do like figurative stuff or something like that. What was the most progress that you've seen in a student under 1 year? Oh, well, like one of my students or just students in general? Because I went to school with people and stuff like that. I've seen ridiculous progress within a year, but the people who made the most progress in something as tight as a year, they all had a shared quality of, I don't know how to put this, but they didn't doubt themselves. They knew exactly what they wanted their art to look like, and they just hacked a path to that look no matter what. And they didn't let anything get in their way. They did shortcuts, they manipulated, they ignored things that other people said were important. They just they knew in their heart of hearts, this is what I want my work to look like, and they wouldn't let anybody get in their way. They didn't care what other people thought or said, right? If other people were like, no, you need to be good at design before you do that. They're like, no, I don't. Screw you. Oh, you need to be good at color before you do that. No, I don't. Screw you. And they just always trusted themselves and followed themselves. And they just, did whatever it took in that very small time frame. And their results were often incredible. Yeah. But they all had that feeling. They didn't need anyone else's approval. And they always just did exactly what they wanted. Without using grid method or tracing, what would you tell a student to practice in order to achieve a likeness of a face portrait? Well, do a lot of them. And then every time that you're done with one, if you don't want to do grid method or tracing, take a picture of it, put it in Photoshop, put them right next to each other, and see where you were off. See what went wrong about your drawing that the actual photograph has or the reference has, and use that as a diagnostic tool, and do that many, many, many times. Also, don't forget that the likeness of a face is very much the likeness of a face is very much contained within the big shapes as well as the features and things like that. there is a psychedelic truth for figure drawing hidden in the fact that you will recognize your best friend walking halfway down the block away from you, right? You're not seeing their face. You're just seeing the back of their head. You're seeing the silhouette of their skull and their hair, and you'll know it's them almost every time. There is a great drawing secret there. Meditate on this. You don't consider some of your live stream high detail pencil work in your professional work, just from a quality of work perspective? Oh, no, I mean, no, quality wise, it's better than my professional work. Like my, the stuff that I put out there on my websites, the pencil stuff that you see me do here is, you know, I hate to say it, but it's just, yeah, when I say professional, I mean, I did it for a company, right? But yeah, the stuff I do for myself looks way better. It's just companies don't need stuff on that level or on those time scales and that level of dedication most of the time, right? I'm a designer. Companies need design work. They just need problem solved as fast as possible. And that often doesn't look great. You know, that's just the way design is. So, no, yeah, I think I actually have a backwards relationship with that. I started taking my client work off of my public facing pages and stuff like that because my personal stuff looked better, and I just wanted to share that instead. And I just wanted to slowly start reversing people associating me with the stuff I had done for companies and pro work because it just wasn't as good as the stuff I did for myself. You know? I've been working through your essential exercises and shared the Boxman scenes with some drawing friends of mine. It really sparked something in them. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome to hear. Thank you so much for sharing Boxer Wing 1970. That's dope. Thank you. Steven, did you purposefully change up the pose? No, I mean, if it's different, it's because I draw freehand. Because I'm practicing for imaginative drawing, I don't check horizontals or verticals because when I draw from my head, there's nothing to check off against. If I was just trying to do as good a figure study as I could with no other considerations, I would get out the knitting needle, I would have guides, everything that I'm exaggerating and changing would be vetted. But I'm not a life artist, you know. I'm not someone who just does like easel paintings or figure drawings for a living. This is to practice an emotional space to try to transfer to drawing from imagination. So I've practiced a lot with measuring and with proportion and things like that in ateliers at school, but I don't do that these days when I draw for myself because I can't do that when I draw from imagination. So I instead try to feel flows. I try to eyeball things. When I eyeball things, I try to be like, what am I eyeballing, right? It's not just about that it looks like that. I'm like, does it look wrong just to me, just from my anatomical knowledge? Because that's something I can repeat when I draw from imagination. So if things look different from the pose and the reference, it's because that, like, of course I can't get it perfect if I'm taking away all of my tools that let me directly reference the reference. I don't work site size, I don't measure proportions, I don't do plumb lines or vertical or horizontal plumb lines. I don't do overlays. I just only do stuff that I can actually do while I draw from my head. And the benefits have been great as far as I'm concerned. It's made... Yeah, I don't know. I can replicate those feelings and those moods and feel like I'm drawing a real thing when I'm drawing from imagination. And I'm always just like saying, well, does it feel like the way it feels when I'm looking at something real, you know? Thank you, Alka. No problem, no name. Thanks, Hubs. Who is your role model when it comes to making art? I had a lot of influences, but I wouldn't say anyone is my role model or anything like that. I know that this sounds either egotistical or cringy, depending on your temperament or what generation you grew up in, but I just want it to be about me. You know, I want me to be my role model. I don't want to waste my time comparing myself to other people. Especially, yeah, the longer you do art, you realize you can't draw like other people. You can't paint like other people. You can't have ideas like other people. It's impossible, right? Art is too personal, too intimate for that. You got to do it your way. So, yeah. I just try to ask myself what I want to do and how I want to work. And it's been really good for me. It's been really good for my practice. It's been really good for the art. And it's been really good for my heart. It's been really good for my heart and soul. It's made me much less crazy. It made me suffer a lot less. And it made me better at drawing. It didn't make me worse. Who is someone... Great White Sufi says, who is someone you hate / feel is overrated that everyone loves? In art, I mean? Oh, I don't know. I mean... Art is all about taste, right? So it's not interesting to me that I don't like someone's art or think it's bad, but tons of people love them. That's not a them problem. That's a me problem. That's just taste, right? It's just not for me. That's not interesting to me. But also I'm the best and everybody else sucks. Favorite movie? Maybe The Witch. It's either The Witch or The Prestige or Alien or it'd be different answers on a different day. The Witch, The Prestige, or Alien. What would you say is the theme of your imagination? Darkness. Darkness. If you could listen to my imagination, it's just saying over and over again, 9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men. He with his horde crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded though immortal. It's just that over and over again. I love popping into these videos when you're live. I love getting those extra bits of wisdom from you whenever I can. Feeds my motivation. Oh, my pleasure, Joseph. I have not read the book of The Prestige. I don't want to lose my love of the movie because the book is always better. No, I haven't seen anything by Satoshi Kon. I've heard a lot of good things, but I haven't seen any of his movies. I don't think I've seen any of his movies. All right, last couple questions here. Hey, Steven, you're a big inspiration, my guy. Oh, thank you, Peter. I was itching to ask someone from the industry with high humane values. What is your opinion on doing NSFW art as a job? Like on your own? Like just, selling it and stuff like that? I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking me. You're asking me if I think it's bad to do it as a job? I just get a little confused by this because I'm like, who's keeping you from doing it? Or what bad thing is happening here? NSFW art, right? If we just call it erotic art or something like that, has a longer history than anything in art, right? Probably, it's that and horses on cave walls. So, I don't know, man. It's just been around forever. I don't see why anyone would be surprised by it or think it's bad. If someone's telling you not to do it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know there's stuff that can be done within those realms that is questionable, but it's never questionable art values wise, it's just you're breaking laws or something like that. That's it, you know, and that you can ask the same questions about those problems as you would if you were breaking the law with, I don't know, fixing cars or something like that. Like, it's not really about art at that point. Yeah, I would just say go for it. You know, I'm always a little bemused by that question. It's just like, do we have a very prudish culture? Yes. if that's the answer you're looking for. Once I was struggling with my own art and wondering if it's really art, but then my dad told me he thinks art is what makes you happy. What do you think, Steven? I will quote the opening to a famous art history book called The Story of Art, which I think nailed it. There is no such thing as art. There are only artists. And that's it. I think that answers most of it. All right, everybody. I'm going to run. It's time for me to eat. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking out the drawings. Thanks for chatting. And take care, everybody. Have a good weekend. I hope you all enjoy your long weekend if you got a holiday for Thanksgiving. And I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.